What up, Tube? What are we doing today? We are going to here be installing struts, new front struts on our 2011 Elantra, and they're sitting down there. You can't see them, they're there. And yeah, we're just going to replace them. We're going to show you how to do struts. Most struts are the same. We're going to use our Elantra because it needs a refresh. Here we go. So we're going to start disassembling. What do we do first? We're going to start with the wheels. We're going to get the wheels off. And then we need, on this particular car, the shocks are behind this plastic cowl. So we're going to take these plastic clips off, the wipers off first, then the plastic clips off of here, and there's 5 of them, and that'll access that. So each car is a little different. Some of your vehicles, you can see the top of the shock tower that holds where the shock is mounted on the top side of the frame or the body. Through your engine bay, it's not covered. On the Elantra, it is. Let's get to it. All right, we have the cowl off. Now the cowl is connected by 4 plastic tabs and then held on in place by the windshield wipers when they're bolted in. So you have to unbolt the windshield wipers. I just moved it off to the side. It is connected by this windshield washer fluid hose. You can unplug it if you want to move it out, but we really don't need this out of the way completely because we're just working on these. Here's a 3 14mm nuts that hold on the upper part of the shock, or the strut, I'm sorry, on the Elantra. Those are your windshield wipers. Got a little plate here with the tabs, the 14mm nuts for the wipers, and the rubber caps for the wipers that just pry off with a flathead. So we're going to get started on this and down there. All right, we are at the strut location and we're looking to see what we're going to have to remove. Some of these brackets are brackets holding specific items like ABS sensors, etc. So you have to be careful because you don't want to hang, pull, and break any of this equipment. So right here, this right here is one of your ABS sensor wires. This is your brake line. 2 very important things, and both are connected to the strut by brackets. So we're going to be removing this guy, these are 12s. We're going to be moving these 2. This connects the strut to the hub, and these right here I believe are 17s or 19s, my bad. From the previous video I already disconnected the sway bar. And here's another way, just going back on the sway bar. This is a new sway bar, and look, it's not leaning against the body, it's just floating. When we took the other one off, it literally just fell because the bushing in there was so bad, or the ball joint in there was so bad. Okay, so I think that may have been cause of some of the noise we're having in the suspension. Now, I'm in here, we're updating some things. Before we started, we did look at the lower control arm, and this is a strut style suspension, meaning there is no upper control arm. And the lower control arm rubber looked to be pretty healthy. And we also tested the ball joints on the lower control arm down here on the hub with the suspension loaded, and there was no movement there. So for the moment, we're going to leave that alone because that's a pretty extensive process. We have to drop the subframe to do that. So we're going to leave the top bolts that we exposed with the cowl. Okay, we're going to leave those on and wait till the end after we loosen all this. So let's get started. All right, we're going to loosen the smaller bolts. They're 12mm. So we're going to do that by hand. I have my electric ratchet, but these aren't very hard to do. So we're just going to do it by hand, mainly because I don't feel like going to get my electric ratchet because we have everything down here already. So let's do this guy. And these all have lock washers on them. They're 12mm bolts, so most likely M8s or M10s. I'll look at them. They don't torque down very heavily. These are not bolts that are in motion or sustaining a wheel on. But if you want to, always double check your torque ratings so you don't over torque them. But they're little. We have our little magnetic tray. I'll show it to you in a little bit here. And that's what we use to organize everything we take off. Now right here, this one okay, goes down to here. The other end of this is connected to the hub, so that won't move very far where we're taking this off. Now you want to be careful. Again, you don't want to pull this out. So for safeguard, we're going to pull this and pop this little wire out of the hub right here so it doesn't pull and damage something. On these bolts that hold the strut on, this one right here is a 17 on the head of the bolt. The other side right there is a 19 on the nut. You always want to loosen off of the nut, not the bolt. That just makes your life easier when you're doing it off the nut. Ha ha ha. So we are going to put our long 17 millimeter wrench on there, and we're going to put our electric impact wrench on loosen, and let's get that off nice and quick. I'm not taking it completely off because I don't want things to fly off on me, so we're just loosening it to the end of the thread of the bolt. Okay, organize your bolts. Do not lose these nuts. They are not easy to find. Now to take this off, you're going to have to loosen the top, but not unbolt it completely, so we can get this a little loose and move around. Alright, so these are 14 mils, so we're just going to loosen them. And we're not trying to take them off right now. We just want to loosen it enough to where it drops the strut just a little bit. So I'm going to leave about 3 threads on each one. And these are 14 millimeters. And this last one's going to be a little stiffer because now the weight of the strut that's still connected to the hub is coming down. Let's get back down. You just saw me hit this guy out with a rubber mallet. This one right here is giving us trouble. So we're going to use an old screwdriver. We'll pry that guy out real quick. Now the ABS sensor is a 10 millimeter that's held on right there. We took that 10 millimeter out and lightly pulled the ABS sensor out. We didn't want to take any chances of busting it. And that's what it looks like when you take it off. It's loose on the top. All you have to do, they're hand tight at the top. So we're going to go ahead and take those off and then just pull the strut down. That's it. All right, so now we have the strut off, and to take, this is your top hat, and it spins. It's got bearings in it, so you can test it to see if it's got any wobble, see if it's making any noise, and honestly, it feels pretty good. The boot seems to be okay. We'll inspect it a little more once we take this top hat off. This is 17 millimeter up top here. You don't just want to blast this off because this spring is under load and it will shoot out. It is dangerous. So what we're going to do is we have these guys, and the way these work are they compress the spring. Okay, we put them on the spring, we hit it with the impact wrench, and it compresses down. So let's get them set up. All right, as you can see, we have these on either side of the spring. I went ahead and I threaded down and tightened it just ever so slightly. They're not compressed yet. You want to balance it out, so you don't want one here and one here. No, you want to have it across from each other so that when you're compressing the springs, it's compressing it about as equal as you can on either side. Got my impact ready? We're going to compress it down just a bit. And let's get this guy. Okay. Now we're going to switch out to the 17 millimeter that I lost. Nope, I didn't. And We should be able to break that loose just ever so slightly. Okay, you can feel it coming off. So what I'm going to do is compress the springs a little bit tighter. Oh, let's hold that with the other hand. Okay, we don't want this shooting out. Remember that. Trying to be safe. Okay, I think we got it. You see it move. Let's see if it shoots out. It's going into those buckets to my right. Did not shoot out. Let's get this old plastic here. There's grease on it, on the nut. So that's cool. Now you can safely remove the top hat. You can inspect the bearings. Everything is good. Right here, nothing's leaking. Okay, we'll put that off to the side, and then we can start taking the rest of it apart. At this point, what we can do is slowly release the spring tension, because now that the cap is off, we need to take the spring off. So there's the rubber isolator for the spring here, and then there's an isolator at the bottom. That one's done. And there, it popped. Okay. Like I said, it's under tension. Don't try to take that top hat off without these spring compressors. I believe I paid $45, $50 for this set. I used them on the Porsche when we did the lowering springs there. And they just sit in my tools. You can rent these at your local parts store as well, most likely. Most of them rent them out. But once you have everything off, check your isolator. There's no cracks. This one looks like it's healthy. We'll put that guy off to the side. There was a washer, which is still on the top. Make sure you don't lose anything. That's why I lay this out. So if anything comes off, it's pretty controlled in the area where it's going. And then we'll take this dude off. We're going to leave these attached because we're going to need to compress it again. And this is your boot. It has the bump stop built into it. Check it. There's no cracks. It's dirty. You can clean it. I'm not going to. Let's compare the shocks. Struts. All right, these are the two struts. This is the new one, the KYB. This is the OEM original with 164,000 miles on it. It's just an OEM replacement strut. This is a gas strut from KYB. It also has it's oil filled as well. This one is the same. I push down on each one of these pistons. You got to be careful. Do not put a pliers or locking pliers or vice grips on this shaft to try to hold it in place. If you do that, you're going to bust the seal in the shock eventually because you're putting grooves into the shaft of the shock. Okay? This new shock has a new upper nut. We're going to put that on. We're not going to reuse the old one. These RockAuto.com, not sponsored, is a great place to find your parts. Well, they had a deal on these. It's KYB is a very well-known Japanese brand of shock, and I've used them before for OEM stuff, and they work really, really good. I think they were on sale for $40 a piece when we bought them. We bought them like, I don't know, maybe a year ago. We've just been sitting on them. But that's new. That's old. They are left and right, so match them up. You can't go wrong. As you can see, everything's in the exact same location. It has the same mounting points for the brackets for the ABS and the brake line. Let's put it back together. The isolator on the bottom side of the spring, don't forget to take that off the OEM shock. It has this. The new one has all the same mounting, or not mounting, but guide holes for the rubber isolator to fit into, and the same lip for it to slide over. Let's stack it up. All right, we got everything aligned on the isolators. We hit the top nut with the impact. It's nice and in place. We are going to now undo the spring compressors. So we try to do it evenly, so we're not releasing both one side quicker than the other. Also, you're careful just in case something goes loose, even though you should have put everything on there properly. And then we go mount it back up. All right, I had to go back and take the shock off and take the spring out, or the top hat off one more time, because I am aware that I forgot to put the dust boot back on, and the dust boot does have the bump stop. So that got taken care of. That's how you put it back in. Now it only can go in, the top hat only goes in one way. So you got to make sure you align it. The easiest way to do it is when you take off, make sure there's a sticker on the top of that top hat, or just mark it in what direction you want it to go so you can align it quicker. I'm going to put the other 2 bolts on, or nuts, I'm sorry, and we're just going to hand tighten them right now. Allow us to get some movement down here so we can realign it. So to put this all back together, you're going to maneuver the hub back into place, align it to the end of the strut. Your 2 bolts go in through here with the head on this side, threaded part that way. The nut goes on this side. Let's get it through. Small little pro tip to help align this, because you have to lift the whole weight of the rotor, the caliper, and the tension of the A-arm, the lower control arm. You want to go ahead and use some help. Put my jack stand under the control arm to move the whole hub up. Then I inserted it into the strut area, aligned it, got the first one through, and then I'll get the second one through, get all that put together. I'm going to just put this all, it's the same thing you did to take it off, just put it back the same way, careful with the ABS sensor, and we're going to come right back and show you how it's all done. All right, it's all done. We got it all updated. The strut is in. We added the sway. We added the tie rod, the sway, everything. We got to get it aligned. Yes, when you put the strut back on, it will mess up your alignment for camber. Again, I'm going a short distance. My main concern was toe. Camber and toe will be adjusted to the alignment shop. You must get it aligned when you're done. But everything's torqued down, tightened down. We'll put the wheel back on, put the car on the ground. I still got one more side to do, but this will be the same as this side. Most strut cars are the same, y'all. Most shock cars are very similar. You can do this on your own, save yourself a lot of money and labor, and keep your car running for a longer period of time, a little smoother and tighter. Any questions, let me know. Hit the comments. And hope you have a great week. God bless.